Every story leaves a mark. Some are carved into monuments. Others survive because people cannot stop laughing when they hear them. This is Simple Tales. Long ago in Anatolia, there lived a man named Nasreddin Hodja. Some called him a scholar. Some called him a judge. Some called him a fool. And depending on the day, all three might have been correct. The stories told about Nasreddin have survived for centuries because nobody could ever be quite certain whether he was the wisest man in town or simply the funniest. Perhaps he was both. One warm afternoon, Nasreddin visited the market. The stalls were crowded. Merchants shouted their prices. Children ran between wagons. The smell of bread, spices, and fresh fruit filled the air. Nasreddin wandered through the market, examining everything with great seriousness, even things he had no intention of buying. At last, he stopped at a fruit seller's stall. There, he found two magnificent melons. They were large, round, perfectly ripe, and far heavier than they appeared. Nasreddin purchased both of them. The fruit seller handed him a net bag, and after much effort, the two melons were squeezed inside. Satisfied with his purchase, Nasreddin began the journey home. At first, the walk was pleasant. The sun was warm. A gentle breeze crossed the hills. Birds sang from nearby trees. But after a while, the melons began to feel heavier. Then heavier still. The net dug into his shoulder. His arms ached. His back complained. Every step seemed slightly longer than the one before. Nasreddin adjusted the bag, then adjusted it again, then stopped to rest. By the time he reached the steep road leading toward his village, he was sweating heavily. The melons swung awkwardly from side to side. Each step felt like carrying a sack of stones. As he slowly climbed the hill, another traveler approached from the opposite direction. The man was well dressed. His robes were spotless. His beard was carefully trimmed. And he carried himself with the confidence of someone who believed he had an opinion on everything. When he saw Nasreddin struggling, he smiled. Not a kind smile. The sort of smile people wear when they are about to offer advice nobody requested. "Hodja," he called. Nasreddin stopped and wiped his forehead. "Yes?" The man gestured toward the bag. "You look exhausted." "I am somewhat exhausted," Nasreddin admitted. The traveler nodded as though he had discovered something important. Then he said, "For a man known for wisdom, you seem to have chosen a very foolish way to carry those melons." Nasreddin blinked. "Oh!" "Certainly." The man folded his arms. "If you were truly clever, you would have found a better method." Nasreddin considered this carefully. The traveler waited, pleased with himself. After all, he had just corrected the famous Hodja. A small crowd nearby slowed to listen. Everyone enjoyed seeing what Nasreddin might say next. To their surprise, he nodded. "You may be right." The traveler smiled wider. "I know I am." "Then perhaps you can help me. I would be delighted." Nasreddin gently lowered the bag to the ground. The traveler watched eagerly. The small crowd leaned closer. Without saying a word, Nasreddin opened the net. He removed one melon. Then he placed the second melon back into the bag. Next, he slung the bag over his shoulder. Then he carefully balanced the first melon on top of his head. The crowd stared. The traveler stared. Nasreddin adjusted the melon slightly until it sat securely. Then he straightened up. The arrangement looked completely ridiculous. One melon hung from his shoulder. The other sat proudly atop his head. For several moments, nobody spoke. Finally, the traveler frowned. "What are you doing?" Nasreddin smiled. "Following your advice." "My advice? Of course." The traveler looked bewildered. "But now you're carrying them in an even stranger way." "Exactly." Nasreddin nodded approvingly. "Thank you for your help." The man opened his mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. No words appeared. Nasreddin continued. "Before, I was carrying them normally." He pointed to the melon on his head. "Now, I am carrying them much more interestingly." The crowd burst into laughter. Some laughed at the absurd sight. Others laughed because they had known people exactly like the traveler. People who offered criticism more readily than assistance. People who enjoyed pointing out problems without solving them. The traveler's face turned red. He realized that everyone understood the joke, including himself. Nasreddin, meanwhile, adjusted the melon one final time and resumed his walk up the hill. The crowd watched him go. A melon on his shoulder, a melon on his head, and a perfectly straight face. Whether the arrangement was easier is something the stories never reveal. That was never the point. The point was that some advice is given not to help, but to impress. And sometimes the best response is not an argument. Sometimes the best response is simply to follow the advice so literally that its absurdity becomes impossible to ignore. That was Nasreddin's gift. He rarely defeated people with anger. He defeated them with mirrors. He reflected their own foolishness back at them until they could finally see it for themselves. And that is why people still tell his stories hundreds of years later. Not because he always had the right answer, but because he always knew the right question. Thank you for listening to Nasreddin and the Two Melons. If you enjoyed this tale from the Nasreddin Hodja tradition, please like the video, subscribe to Simple Tales, and share it with others who love folklore, wisdom, and timeless stories. Until our next journey into the world's timeless tales, thank you for listening.